This episode is brought to you by Rival Fantasy. You can go to joinrival.com/boxofficeqbs right now and get $25 free play. Plus, they will match your first deposit of up to $200.
Welcome into Box Office Quarterbacks, a very special edition of Box Office Quarterbacks. We have our friend Gary Morgenstein back with us today. We've talked to Gary in the past. He's had a really exciting career, everything from an author to a playwright. He's even done some PR campaigns for the Sharknado movies. Maybe you've heard of them. Gary, I'm so happy to have you back with us today. And the exciting thing about this is you are completing your trilogy of post-apocalyptic political baseball thrillers.
That's right. Book 3, A Dugout, the piece, comes out in December. It's available for pre-order at Amazon and Barnes & Noble and all other fine places. And it begins in 2098 after America has lost World War III to the Islamic Empire. And democracy's dead. And there's a new government called the Family, run by Grandma. It's kind of like a nanny state. Religion's banned. Patriotism is banned, but one of the good things is social media is banned under the anti-narcissism laws. So that might be something we should consider maybe a little sooner than 2098. And baseball is disgraced because baseball is associated with the old America, the America which failed, the great power, the empire that led us into a war that we lost. And baseball is down to 2 teams playing at Amazon Stadium in the Bronx for its final season ever. And then a couple people from the past show up, a couple players, and baseball is revived. And that's A Mound Over Hell, which was called 1984 Meet Shoeless Joe, and A Fastball for Freedom, which is has been called A Dystopian Field of Dreams. And now A Dugout to Peace. So in it, I love baseball. And I'm sentimental about baseball. And I think baseball, there's a reason why baseball was called the national pastime. It is hooked into American pop culture, into American history. And I don't want to diss other sports because I have enormous respect for anyone who competes. I mean, basketball players are incredible athletes, football players, anyone. But baseball's different. I'm sure you can tell me that who's the all-time passing yardage leader. I'm sure it's Tom Brady.
Oh, yeah.
Does do the numbers have any significance, like 56 or 511 or all the other baseball related records that have withstood time or been broken? Lou Gehrig's 2,130 consecutive streak, and Cal Ripken broke it, and Pete Rose and Ty Cobb. But there's a connection which it's part and parcel of this country. And since America in the novels, America represented the past, which has failed. Baseball will once again lead America back to freedom and back to democracy.
Yeah, you're so right. When it comes to like record chasing in baseball, like it's so different than any other sport. Like I remember still the home run race of the late 1990s with Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire. Even though there was steroid scandals later, it was still very exciting to see that, they were both trying to get that 71 or 72 to break that record. But yeah, I think I told you this before, but this idea is so cinematic and so unique. Like I would love to see this as like a Netflix series. I think it would be really, really great. Where did you first get the idea to mix a sports novel and like a post-apocalyptic world?
Well, it was May 2015, and my wife and I were having Sunday breakfast, listening to the Beatles and eating an everything bagel with cream cheese. I don't know if many people, that's very potent, everything bagels. And the idea popped into my head. What about a novel about an America which has lost World War III? It's run by someone called Grandma, and baseball starting its final season ever. I thought that's a good idea. Now you got it, and so 1,500 pages later, which is what the published total. When you write books, the manuscript is longer. So trust me. And all the pages you delete. I would have for this, I have a separate file called deleted pages, and it's almost 200 pages.
Dang.
The stuff, I know, right? The stuff you take out, and you don't want to be crazy, because the moment you completely delete it is when you decide at 3:30 in the morning, oh wait, that wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
Right. So, and also, I love politics and I love history. And the challenge when you're writing dystopian literature is that you want to show the reader how today can become tomorrow, your world. But you don't want to wallow in today. There's never any references about Joe Biden or Donald Trump, on and on. There's none like that. And even the number of contemporary players I keep a little spare. But you want to show how we could turn into that, how America's democracy could fail, which I don't think, you look around, it wouldn't surprise you too much anymore.
Yeah,
and you look
sure.
around at, right, the standards in our military being lowered, and you say, well, could we really lose a world war? And so you could see the traces of what could happen. But then when you create the dystopian world, you have to create your own rules and your own reason. For example, I said that social media is banned under the anti-narcissism laws. Now, it's not anything that a latter-day Mark Zuckerberg does, or Elon Musk or anything. It's not like that at all. But this society is founded on individual responsibility, on a certain love, and believing in family and real relationships. And I don't want to shock everyone out there, but the 1,000 friends you have on Facebook are really not your friends.
No.
Right?
They're very much your acquaintances that you met one time at a party 10 years ago, or something
exactly.
like that.
Yeah, right. You go through your friends list, you say, wait, who is that?
Yeah.
Who is this person? So I think that's a different sort of logic that you have. Abortion is illegal. Now, it's not because there's, as you would see in contemporary times, the far right, the ultra, religious groups have taken over because religion is banned. It's because in World War III, we lost 17 million people, including, for various reasons, 4 million children. So the need is to repopulate. Okay. But then when one of the main characters in book 1 becomes pregnant, and it's like, well, okay, first I said, well, what do I do? I said, well, she can't have an abortion. So it creates your own challenges as a writer. But readers will bust you if you violate your own rules.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, you're taking a shortcut. I don't believe in shortcuts. I'd rather, sweat and bleed.
Yeah,
make it come out right.
That's so cool. Like, I never even thought that you get to make your own rules when it comes to a world like this. And you talked about that character getting pregnant in book 1. That kind of reminds me of Children of Men with Clive Owen, I think it was.
Yes.
Were there any movies that influenced this novel when you kind of went into it to write it?
I think, maybe some novels like The Man in the High Castle.
Okay.
I'm a big Philip Dick fan. And I love the Amazon series. But I like turning things upside down. And I don't want to, I never write according to the narrative or the prevailing media narrative. Even in my plays, I have characters who defy the stereotypes. So I wanted to show something very different. And when you go with alternative history, I think that opens a lot of doors. It gives you a lot more freedom and flexibility.
Yeah.
And I also think as a writer, you have to show the most, we're so caught up in, and literature is another form of entertainment. I'm not going to be precious about it. Okay. It's different. It has its own demands, but it's like any other entertainment. But we're so caught up now in like CGI. Okay. For one thing, but you've got to make it about the characters.
Yeah.
No matter what. And beyond that, we're very heavy on social messaging. Now, it's wonderful. Artists hold up a mirror to the world and say, look, this is wrong. What are you going to do about it? We've been doing that for thousands of years. You go back to the ancient Greeks, they were like, like that. Say, this is wrong, making fun of people. And you have to, so that's fine, that's great. But you have to remember that you're talking about people. and it's got to be the characters, not the message. It's how the characters are involved in this, because I think the least represented voting bloc in this country are folks, everyone else, and you've got to be willing to show people flawed.
Yeah,
and that's
sure.
another thing, because we're all flawed.
Yeah,
You know, I wish we weren't, but that's that. And you root for people who are flawed. All my characters, they're just ordinary people. A baseball historian, a former artist, someone who runs a shoe store. It's an 11-year-old orphan who illegally enters the country from Barcelona, which is under the Islamic empire. Just people who do extraordinary things. And I think that's when you finish a book or a play or a movie or a television series, you remember the characters.
Yeah. Relatability is such a huge thing these days. And I think we're seeing that a lot more in like different types of art. Like, you know, we were talking about that in our Superman episode we did before this, where this animated series made Superman more relatable, and we love that. And I think you do that really well with your characters. But the big theme throughout these three books is baseball. And I know you love baseball, and you have a very, very important relationship with America's pastime. Kind of take me through when you first fell in love with this game.
Well, I grew up 6 blocks from Yankee Stadium. That's why I talk like this in the Bronx. And I must have been maybe 8 years old, and I started writing short stories about this. I still remember about this guy named Davey who played shortstop for the Yankees, and I fell in love with it. When you go into a baseball stadium, daytime or night, and you see the field, it's like heaven's front lawn. It's so beautiful, Jeffrey. It's just so beautiful, and again, it's the sentiment. There's something kind of magical about it. I think we always remember the first game we ever went to. Remember when we started playing catch with our dad or mom, whatever, the first glove. It's different than other sports. There's just this otherworldly connection to the game. And I know it's, maybe not what it once was. I'm not a big fan of, the analytics, but in the books now, baseball comes back. Okay. And then the novelty begins wearing off. So the new commissioner of baseball says, we're going to go back to the 20th century rules.
Oh, nice. Yes.
And we're going to go back to the foods they sold. And we're going to go back to the names of the ballparks. So it's, Shea Stadium now. It's not Citi Field. So it's Crosley Field. So it's Forbes Field. It's not, can anyone even name the stadiums, their name? I mean, Insurance Field.
Yeah, it's so ridiculous now. Like for the Denver Broncos, I think it's in Power Field at Mile High. We all call it Mile High Stadium still. So
yes, it's crazy. Yes, and so we go back in time a little bit, and we adjust things, and we try to recenter America. And in this world, the history has been rewritten over time. So no one's really sure what the history is, but they figure out, okay, we can do it through baseball. So it's the pop culture. So this is when the hula hoops happen, for example, or Elvis Presley. So they try to reconnect the past, which has been sanitized and changed, and no one is sure really what it was. But ultimately, and it's dark. I mean, there's humor. People always comment on the humor, but it's dark. You're talking about the Islamic world and America still in a very, semi-hot state, and then World War IV begins.
Oh,
and this time they might use the nukes. Everyone said, no, let's not use nuclear weapons in World War III, because then we're all gone. But this time, all bets are off. And you have robot armies fighting for America. So it's very dark, and there's a lot of hatred on both sides, and you have to be willing to show the hatred. I know I had some comments from my editor. Well, isn't that a little strong? I said, yeah, it's strong, but that's what people would say. You have to show, as an artist, you have to depict realistically and honestly the world, and not be afraid. And some people are going to be offended. Well, as we say in Brooklyn, tough noogies for that. That's that's just how it is. But what you also must do is you must show a light. You must show a way forward. You don't have to be all squeaky clean and cutesy and everything like that. But you must at least show that there's a possibility, a way. You know, God knows our politicians aren't going to show us any of that.
Yeah.
So, right, we get that. But we, one book at a time, one movie, one play at a time, need to show that there is hope. And I think that's what my books do show, with these very ordinary characters who become great leaders despite themselves and their fears and their doubts and their flaws because of faith. And I'm not talking about faith, religious faith. I'm talking about faith in themselves and each other. And I'd like to, say that maybe that's possible.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great series of books. The newest one comes out in December, right? Is this one?
A Dugout the piece, but you could order it now at like Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Google, Apple, whatever. Yeah.
Nice. I do have to ask you about the Yankees. I know it's been a tough season. What are your thoughts on what they can improve kind of going forward?
Well, I think they were smart in calling up the kids.
Yeah.
And, long term, we'll see. You can't read too much into how a rookie performs in September.
That's true.
Right, especially on a team that's out of the pennant race. And until they figure out the holes in the swing and how they will stand up over the long haul. But at least there seems to be some talent. Dominguez looks like he has talent. I think that they're saddled with these big contracts, and they've made huge mistakes with Stanton, and it looks like Rodon. There's a lot that they need a lot of cleaning house. And because Anthony Rizzo is not going to get better, not to what he once was. LeMahieu is, he's 240. I mean, there's a lot of people who have hit their ceiling, veterans. Yeah. And I think it's time the Yankees have to bite the bullet and say next year, it doesn't have to be a complete rebuilding where they're going to lose 100 games, because you still have Aaron Judge and have Gary Cole. But you need to say, okay, maybe it's going to be 2025. But I think at the least they're going to be more fun to watch next year, because they have been painful.
Yeah, it's been very up and down for sure. And baseball is kind of crazy now. I mean, you got the Baltimore Orioles just kind of taking over the league, which I did not see coming whatsoever.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. But let's talk
about
the
playoffs. You never know playoffs.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
right.
It could be the Braves and the Orioles. I mean, you got a lot of good teams in there. Texas is pretty good.
Dodgers, you can't do, never rule out, defending champs, the Astros, Tampa. But, someone's going to surprise. There's going to be someone who's in a short series. My dark horse is Milwaukee because of their pitching.
I would love to see that.
Yes. I like the small markets. I like, I'm a Yankee fan, but I'm so tired of the teams. I think it's kind of ironic that I think there's, of the top four payrolls, the Yankees, Mets, and Padres, three of them have horrible season.
Yeah.
How bad can you feel bad for them? Can't feel bad for them.
Yeah. Do a youth movement, give us some small markets. I think it's better for the game going forward for sure. Let's talk about Sharknado though for a little bit.
Yes.
10-year anniversary this year.
Yes.
You did some really cool work on those franchises. Looking back a decade ago, what are you most proud of when it comes to marketing those movies and what they've kind of become?
Well, that I didn't listen to the masters, because Sharknado almost didn't happen. And we're going back to June 2013. And Sharknado was part of the Saturday night movie, the sci-fi movie, the grade B, the cheesy movies. And in June, there was a tornado that struck the Midwest somewhere, and it killed a couple hosts from the Discovery show. I think it was called Tornado Watch. Mm-hmm. So the executives at Sci-Fi were worried, well, people will think we're being insensitive by showing a movie about a Sharknado movie with tornadoes. And I said, wait a second, can you hold on a second here? It's about tornadoes hitting Los Angeles, which has never happened before. It scoops up sharks and dumps them in the mainland where they eat people. I don't think anyone's going to think that we're making fun of the tornadoes which just killed a couple people.
Yeah.
So they said, well, you better be right or else. So my you-know-what was on the line if it backfired. And I was getting great press, but Ian Ziering, so they said, okay, we'll run the movie. Ian Ziering wanted nothing to do with any publicity. Ian only took the role because he needed to make money to keep up his SAG health membership. His wife said, you better take this role, honey.
Oh, no.
The family needs health care coverage. So he wouldn't do any publicity. Tara Reid did publicity. The director, Anthony C. Ferranti, did publicity. But I said, we've got something good here. I remember Don Kaplan, the TV editor of the Daily News, he said he was going to do a whole big page on it. And I said, well, do you want to see a screen? He said, no, the title is enough. Because the movie was made for about like $17 or so, the first one. So the photographs weren't good. So now it's July 2013, and it airs on a Thursday. And the next morning I wake up and I'm getting ready to go to San Diego Comic-Con. And I go pick up my suitcase at a friend's house. And she says, oh, did you know your Sharknado movie is on the Today Show? I said, what? She said, yeah, they're about to do a second segment. I said, what? I had no idea what was going on. When I got to the office, I realized that Sharknado had blown up the internet. You had the American Red Cross tweeting that if you're in a Sharknado, here are the things you should do. Mia Farrow is with Philip Roth watching Sharknado and tweeting. What you want to talk about? Seriously? And I have never had such a busy day in my entire television publicity career as that day. People had to like bring me food. I had to parcel out press interviews. And it was, by the end of the day, maybe it's 5 o'clock. People who would never have answered my calls, okay? You know, ABC Evening News and I mean, just the New York Times, on and on and on, okay? Finally, Nightline, a producer from Nightline calls. I don't know if everyone remembers Nightline. You know, right? It was with Ted Koppel. It was, you know, the Cadillac of news shows, right?
Yeah.
The producer says, we want to do a segment on Sharknado. And I said, why? He says, well, because we want to do it. I said, you do know that there was just a military coup in Egypt and you want to do Sharknado? He said, yeah. I said, whatever. But then they didn't know if it was just a fluke. Okay, if it was just that Sharknado, that one movie, you know, you're going to lightning strike again. So they were in negotiations for a contract to do Sharknado 2, which dragged on and on. It's always about money, right?
Yeah.
It dragged on so long that by the time they finally set the production schedule to be filmed in New York, we were going to film in February. Now, New York, for all of you out there who live in the area, you know, New York can be a little chilly in February for a movie that is supposed to take place in the summer. So the script called for the Sharknado to hit at Yankee Stadium. The Yankees would have nothing to do with it. Even CGI could not destroy Yankee Stadium. Go away. The Mets said, sure, Citi Field, have fun. We're not going anywhere.
Oh, man.
So we show up for the shoot, and it's like 12 degrees, and it's snowing. And all these extras, these poor people, the call had gone out, show up, it's the summer. Show up in your shorts and flip-flops and tank tops. Those people.
Oh, man.
So we had all the heaters set around. And I said, okay, look, we could spin it this way. We'll say that because it's a Sharknado, it changed the weather. And there we go. And people bought it. And that was, the one in New York was the best one because it had the most heart. It was really, I'm not saying, you know, it's Casablanca, but it had a certain sentiment, a certain soul. And what happened afterwards is that had great ratings, okay? And then everyone wanted to glom onto it and have cameos from all the different NBC Universal shows. So whether they fit or not, they had to be in the movie for publicity. And it just started sagging and falling down. I remember Mark Cuban was the president in Sharknado 3.
That's right.
People were saying, now, a reality show host as president, that'll never happen.
Oh, man. You guys are kind of predicting the future on that one.
A little bit.
Yeah.
And it was such fun. And I've wondered whether the country came together in fun, in merriment, in silliness. And we are so polarized now. I just wonder if we could do another Sharknado, because I think we have to learn to laugh at ourselves.
Yeah.
I think as a nation, and I'm not, this is not partisan at all. This, everyone just has to take a breath and laugh again, you know, and say, well, maybe I do sound silly, and maybe I can enjoy something silly.
Yeah.
And I think that's, hopefully we'll get back to that.
I think you guys did pave the way for that type of genre of movies to come back, because you have something like Cocaine Bear that came out this year. And I think that's very much a Sharknado inspired type of comedy horror movie. So I think the legacy of Sharknado definitely lives on, and I'd be down to see another one for sure.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. All right, Gary. Man, this has been a fun conversation. Really exciting times for you. Dugout to Peace comes out in December. Anything else you want to add before we get out?
No, you just follow me on. I'm at Twitter at Writer Gary, on Facebook, Instagram, and the book is published by BHC Press. So the bhcpress.com.
Nice. Well, we'll link Gary's Twitter profile when we release this episode. But this has been another exciting episode of Box Office Quarterbacks. I am Jeff. We will talk to you guys very, very soon.